First of all, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining in. Thank you for coming to Startup September. This is something that we're doing throughout the startup throughout September. We're doing different programs for different communities, different groups pertaining to different sectors, and we have something for enablers, we have something for community builders, for D2C, for Web3. But today we're all here for the SaaS community, and we have a session on developing a SaaS product. So, I wouldn't take much of time because I know that you guys are all eagerly waiting for the session. So today we have with us Mr. Srivatsan. He's the Vice President and Head of Concur R&D, SAP Labs India. He's headed a team of 100 plus engineers across Concur product space, like Concur Invoice, Concur Pay, and Concur Expense. And there's, I'm sure we'll be able to get a lot of insights from his journey, and we'll be able to apply it to our own, SaaS product and companies. So very welcome, Srivatsan, and over to you. I'll just give you the stage. Let this session be interactive, guys. You can also put in your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer them either at the middle of the session or at the end, as Srivatsan, it's convenient for you. We can do that. But over to you.
Thank you, Vania. Colleagues, good evening and welcome. Super happy to have a conversation with you on this topic. Yeah. A quick background about myself. I think, as Vania said, I've been in this industry for about 2 decades, into multiple roles, product, engineering, thought leadership space, and now more on the influencer space. The thoughts that I'm going to share here is not something that you're going to hear anything new, but more from a perspective of what's been the journey and what's been the impact that's been created from my learnings. Yeah? So that's what we would be looking at. So before I get started, I'll quickly want to share an experience of mine that happened about 6 years back. Yeah. So I was on this flight from Mumbai to Bangalore, and I was talking with a colleague called Sridhar. Yeah, a colleague was seated next to me. The flight got delayed as usual. Air India at that point in time, Indian Airlines Air India was it at that 7-8 years ago. We didn't have Indigo and other things, so not on-time performance 8 years back. So we were having a long conversation. He was busy preparing a slide deck for a topic that he was trying to present in Bangalore. Yeah, so this was in the Mumbai airport. As we were preparing, I was curious to understand what he was doing, because what he was doing was I knew that he was a techie working for a company, but his deck was primarily around villages, themes around agriculture, people, and so on. Yeah. So I started having a conversation with him, and we were all on the same page after about an hour with coffee and other things. And I was asking him curiously, hey, you know what? I see that you are in the tech industry, IT industry, but you seem to be doing something where it's something completely off the track, right? Then he started sharing details to say that, Shri, I want to share you something, and I want quick feedback from you. So he said that, hey, I'm going to share you 3 slides with you. I want you to quickly look at the 3 slides and let me know what you understand from that. I said, yeah, absolutely. Why not? As long as I'm not sharing my company's intellectual property, nothing more can happen, right? So let's do that. So I was going through three slides. The first slide had a great looking farmhouse setup and a lot of agricultural fields around. And there were a few people in the front of that house standing, but with laptops. The second slide actually contained a beautiful journey of what goes for these people. Get up in the morning, take a walk in the field, come back, have a beautiful katan chaya at that point in time, right? So the tea, the black tea, along with the various nutritious village foods. Start off with exercise or walk in the field, and then finally it culminates into a kind of a design thinking workshop for them, where they brainstorm on a whiteboard and then finally start working on a laptop. Evening times is all fun games with all those games that you find in the fields, right? And that's how it was. And then finally, the third slide ended the storyline by saying that we are building something innovative in India for the world. That's all. It covered that, and it had certain CSR responsibilities. I was curious to understand that. What are you? I mean, are you into IT? Are you trying to say that we could build the next product or SaaS product or innovation from the village, right? So Sridhar incidentally told me that, Sri, I wanted to share this because I know that I know you just for about 1 hour. If you're able to understand what I'm trying to convey in 3 slides, I'm sure my investors will also understand that. I don't need to introduce myself, and these 3 slides are my introduction. Quite a powerful statement, made a big impact on me to understand that if I can make a native guy or a novice understand what was he trying to do, I don't need to sell anything. Then I started understanding with Sridhar, what are you doing and what's it? Incidentally, it turned out that Sridhar is nothing but Sridhar Vembu, CEO of Zoho. Yeah, so it was fabulous to have a very long conversation with him later on. And then later on, he also shared his feedback on what he's trying to do in Zoho by trying to decentralize and delocalize. So asking talent to move into a place where they need to move. There seems to be some Bluetooth issue, but let me try to address that. Yeah. So that was a starting point, and also something like kind of an eye opener for me to say that what is he trying to convey and what is the takeaway for that. That was one conversation that I had with Sridhar. The other conversation was about 2 years back when I was interacting with some of the customers of SAP, one of the leading powerhouses of supply chain, big baskets, and also customers related to that or in the fashion cosmetic space. They had a problem with both these things. They were not able to resize images. As you know, Nykaa is into the space of cosmetics where they need to resize images, show images, videographies, videos, showcasing the various cosmetic things. And the same holds good for Big Basket, where they need to look at the product catalog lookup on images and other things. They had a performance problem, that whenever they upload a catalog or new catalog into Nykaa and Big Basket on the CX space, they were not able to resize it on the fly depending upon what the vendor is using. For example, if I'm a person who's trying to log into Big Basket, I should be able to see my image based on my network bandwidth and so on, and have a conversation, if at all, look at it in a kind of a meta space at a later point in time. So depending upon my bandwidth and other things, they wanted a easygoing capability. In our startup studio that we were running, there was also capabilities or people who were trying to solve this problem. This problem space gave an opportunity for a person to say that, can I look at a SaaS capability, a SaaS supporting a SaaS? Nykaa itself is a SaaS product. Big Basket also runs on the cloud, you know that, with a lot of hyperscalers powering Big Basket. And now you have another SaaS company helping another SaaS company with an innovation. Of course, that's possible. That's the power of SaaS. Having said that, I quickly wanted you to run through certain thoughts and certain statements that SaaS companies put out on their brand, right? On one end, we have companies where we say that where teams get together, they design together. When we get together, we also design together. There's another end of extreme where companies like GitHub became a unicorn in a matter of just 4-5 years, where the statement says we build the world's best product, or products which are built using our transport management or version management system. SAP's tagline, of course, also says that we also help the world run better and touch and improve people's lives. 1 billion lives is also something that we are very passionate about. On the other extreme, I do have very small companies, which are like 3-4 people companies in buffer, which says that I'm going to stand for transparency. The tagline is, I'm going to stand for transparency, and I will stand for transparency, be it on salary, be it on whatever be that, right? I mean, internally. The HR transparency is what is going to be my tagline for my company. In all these things, one thing that really stands out is how they build a brand and why they are building something for. This is a purpose that seems to be coming out very clearly in all these SaaS companies. A need followed by a purpose. And many times the product comes later on. What we have seen in the overall SaaS kaleidoscope world is that, that's a stat that remains, is for every 10 companies that is incubated, only one really SaaS startup ecosystem. And once these companies move into a successful space, two things can happen. One, nearly 50% of the companies gets acquired within a year, or they get to go and become a unicorn. So this is the reward you get for being in the SaaS ecosystem or startup world. The risk reward ratio is high, but it also lets you think, why is that a lot of companies fail in the initial 3 years? 90% is a lot, right? There should be something behind that to understand why do these companies struggle. Of course, there are other struggles with ecosystem, getting the right funding, market, and also support systems and so on, a launch pad and so on. But yes, that is something more fundamental for all these companies, where they all look at to say that, yes, this is something that we need to fix as a bare minimum. If so, I'll be able to crack up this SaaS ecosystem world. There are certain parameters, if I have to put it this way, which I have learned from my areas experiences in 2 decades and also incubating startups and being their coaches and mentors, where companies have really aced the startup world or the SaaS world. I'm sure you would all hear about customer centricity. Yeah, that's a given thing, right? Any customer, you need to put them in front of any innovation that you build. That's your purpose. That's the why you're solving the problem for. I'm not going to touch about customer centricity and ecosystem awareness, but I'm going to talk about the other 3 things which are very relevant in a SaaS ecosystem world, but sometimes goes unnoticed in many of our environment. Ecosystem awareness primarily is around how do you know your funding company? How do you know your partners? How do you ensure that your financial institution is backing you? Your venture capitalist funding you? Are you going to bootstrap it on your own, right? Zoho, as an example, has never gone IPO, right? So there are companies which have gone on their own, bootstrapped on their own, and remained in that space for long and remains an independent entity without going into an IPO market. And there are companies, both are possible. It's a question of what do you want to pick up and how do you, as that startup, a SaaS owner, how passionate are you in tying up yourself with that? Incidentally, SAP product that I'm associated with, SAP Concur, also started and was born in the cloud as a SaaS company. Concur was known as a travel organization, but 80% of its revenue comes from other products, SaaS products that are on the cloud, which not many people know about it because travel is the most flamboyant industry that people associate with. Concur is known for its expense management capability. Concur is known for its invoicing capability. Concur will be known pretty soon for its Fintech capability pretty soon, which is an incubation that we are doing. So every product gets incubated separately as a separate capability and then brought mainstream. And that's the way the launch pads really work. And that's something which is very fundamental in our accelerator launchpad, which we call as democratizing innovation, right? Innovation can be done in 2 ways. One is what I call as frugal innovation, and another one is what I call as democratizing innovation. In Indian context, if I have to give you a simple context, anyone and everyone who knows the word jugaad can innovate, right? Jugaad is something which is very close to me, to say that we from our grandmother days know what is a jugaad for a given problem. We are good at that. But if we can stop shipping jugaad to a customer, but if we start building on a jugaad to make it enterprise scale, of course, that is innovation, right? And democratized innovation is a capability to say that instead of asking people to innovate, I will build on their ideas in their own time via entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurship is a capability for start investing time for themselves in their own idea space and ideating the idea space, giving them the launch pad to innovate further. And that's something that every SaaS startup organization needs to do. Rule 40 is very important for all SaaS startup. I'm sure you would have come across that. It simply says that I should be able to break even with a 40% margin, right? So the run rate, given the way how you get your ARR revenue in, the way I get my customer run rate, retentions and other things, I should be able to break that rule 40, ace the rule 40 so that I become profitable. And every venture capitalist organization, as they go through the series funding, I'm sure there's a question that will be asked to say that, now show me how am I going to be at least 40% or more profitable in this way of operation. For every rupee spent, 40 paisa is a savings. Then in that case, how do I go ahead? That's the bare minimum threshold that you really want to look at. And many SaaS companies, something that I always insist on is to invest in matrices. I'm a big fan of any SaaS product capability that's been built needs to have a few things from a matrices perspective in place, right? From SLAs, service level agreements, into service level objectives, translating into service level indicators. If you're able to measure what you push into the cloud, and if you're able to even get an insight into what you push into the cloud, you are setting yourself success for that particular SaaS product. Yeah. So telemetry is something that's got to be baked into the product capability in any SaaS product. And if you're able to ace these 6 dimensions of SaaS product, I'm sure you do have some success on hand. And this is a kind of a sense of what SAP Concur. It has always been that's slightly different from how other companies operate. The classic example that I would give from if I have to map my journey is, as recently, if you looked at Apple's launch of a product, which just happened about a day back, you would have seen that a guy who comes in, a SVP of product, started playing a video of how Apple Watches or health capabilities are helping a trekker find his way back, of how a guy who gets lost in an island is able to locate his way back. A person who's driving a car, how is he able to send a SOS back on a crash detection? A person who's a part of the mountaineering team is able to send his location via satellite locations without phone network connectivity to his friends and families back. How collaborative can messages be, right? That's what I call as a purpose. So many companies start off by saying that, why do they exist? And once you're able to achieve why you exist, and that's what I call as the purpose and my belief. If I'm able to believe, I say this is my belief in what I would invest, which is very, very critical for any offering. Then comes the part of how am I delivering that, right? How am I designing that capability? How I go about in an engineering principle solving the problem. And then incidentally, I have products like watches, Apple Watches. I have incidentally product like iPhones. I have incidentally a product which is also my iPod and so on. So in the SaaS world, I believe that this is exactly what is also the secret sauce for any startup venture. When they start up with a startup venture, if you're able to get that purpose and belief and why you're solving that and for whom you're solving that right, you'll be able to ace it out with multiple products, right? And that's exactly what is the 3 concentric circles, very well-known concentric circles of starting with why and then going to what, which is a product solution. Many times in those failures, SaaS product failures, we have seen, at least from incubating the products and other things, we have seen that the emphasis is more on what is that product about? What does it do? What are its capabilities? Which technology stack it runs on? What are the integration capabilities? Its richness, its ability to interact. And then they try to say that, yeah, this is the problem that we solve by doing that. And when you go in an inverted way, it's a human thing which says that I'll not be able to correlate what happens. So it's also about how a human brain works. If you're able to reach out to a venture capitalist funding guy and tell him that I have a great product, but it's also about solving a problem which is very pertinent, then he's able to correlate with that. And that's also holds good in any SaaS product capability. Good. So this is a kind of a sense to give you at least 30-40% of the failures can be avoided if you're able to get this part addressed in your blueprint. Of course, you would have it, but the emphasis is on that, and the storytelling has to start from that. And if you're able to start from that, of course, you can also sell it to your customers. And when you sell it to your customers, we use a model called as a dry model. Yeah. So this is something that is quite famous in any SaaS product venture of how do you sell and how do you take a product and also reinvent yourself as a SaaS product. It's a dry model that it goes through the phases of awareness, deliberation, retention, and influencer, right? So in the awareness phase, when you are being part of the SaaS product, the starting point of this awareness is always the why part. Why are you doing this? Why are we solving this problem as a SaaS product? Why are we doing this? Or what is the way in which I'm addressing a problem? And what is the need for me to address that problem? How are you going to stand out? That's your awareness part. In the initial phases, if I'm trying out a new app or any product capability, a classic example here would be that, of course, many of us use email apps. There are many email apps that exist in your app store, right? Apart from the what you get as a stock inbox capability management in any phones. For apps to stand out, they always start with, why am I different? Why do you want to use it? A classic example is there is an inbox app that says that I want to target 0 inbox end of the day. And that's my tagline. And most of the times we know that every mails that come in will have some leftover or some overflow into the next day. And as an inbox management organization or app capability or a SaaS function that exists, I'm going to use the Gmail function that remains behind or other functions that remains behind, but I'll help you automate and innovate in such a way that I will make your productivity day to ensure that you get to inbox of 0 by end of the day. And that's my USP, or the why part of why do you think you should look at my product. That's the awareness part. And that why emphasis, if it is more human, the better, right? We don't want to talk about technology here. We don't want to talk about tech stacks. We don't want to say that, why am I using an AWS environment or an Azure environment with 0 latency? No, we want to see how I can help you solve as a human being, right? And the why part needs to address that human connect. And once we are able to address the human connect, comes the human mindset from a neuroscience perspective. Of course, I'm also a neuroscience mentor in many of my products, is the deliberation part, where the prefrontal cortex of your brain, PFC as we call it, starts looking at assimilating the data to say that, now I know that I have got these data points, how am I going to make sense out of it? Why do you think I should look at this over another? Right? So this is what I call as interdependent decision-making capability, right? It's able to form correlations. The prefrontal cortex, which is exactly in the front of your mind, is able to start looking at these kind of models to say that, why do you think this app is better or the other app is better? Is my UI better or another thing's better, right? So now, from after accepting on the why part, now I really look at the feature capabilities now, or capabilities that connect with me as a human being. So, and this is the point where we start going to the next level to say that for you to solve this problem, we have these capabilities that helps you as an individual, helps you as a person from a persona perspective to solve these problems. And that's your deliberation front. And if you're successful in cracking the prefrontal cortex memory line of a guy, you're able to make a decision to say yes to it. And that's where most of the SaaS organizations succeed in becoming a great unicorn. The part that people try to solve here is what I call as a stickiness quotient, or your ability to attract attention to that person. Right? Ability to keep that attention. It's an attention economy, right? I mean, in an attention economy, every organization, every guy is trying to fight for the attention of that person. So this stickiness quotient has to be more than 20%, 20-25% for any of your app to have that kind of retention or recall factor with that person, or the ability to connect, right? Am I able to emotionally connect? A classic example to say that if you get up in the morning and you open your phone, right, automatically your hands go to your phone. What is the app that you immediately open up? It could be a news app, it could be a WhatsApp or anything, right? That's your stickiness quotient, because it sticks with the guy. It becomes a part and parcel of that person's life, right? And this is good even in the enterprise world as well. And when we go into the enterprise world, we also say, what is the stickiness quotient that we want to achieve with this organization? Am I going to really look at a way of solving how his payments are done? Am I really going to look at the way how he wants to reimagine his work list? That's the stickiness quotient that we always try to look at. The same human index. And of course, once the stickiness quotient is done, we go into the retention space. And of course, this is something that many people are familiar with, is your NPS and how do I get these customers who are having a great net promoter score as an advocate to become an influencer. And once they are influencer, you don't need to worry, right? Because of the interdependent decision making, these folks will automatically talk for you, talk for your topic, ability to connect with what you want to. A dry model, of course, works. We always go through any startup studio venture to say that, why don't you try running this a dry model with a blueprint of these 3 concentric circles that we started off with an entrepreneurship capability, right? Of course, tech stack wise, you don't really need to worry, because nowadays you do have your low code, no code capability, ability to start spinning up a code in just 3 weeks time. So coding is not your biggest problem. Tech stack is not your biggest problem. You do have capabilities to solve all these things. The only thing which has always remained constant in any startup capable venture and even relevant even now is start with that purpose, great product function to solve that purpose, connect with the person or your persona that we are trying to do in a more human way, and then incidentally try to say that this is a solution. That what part, if you can delay it to the last 10-15 minutes of your pitch, fabulous. And of course, if you're selling it to a customer, a dry model is absolutely a dry way to say that, how do I drive towards adoption of your SaaS product? Good. So let me quickly take a pause, take a quick break. I know I've been speaking a lot. Also wanted to quickly open it up to say that, guys, anything that I can help you understand more better, and any conversation that you want to have in these models, of course, happy to open it up for questions.
Sisha, Funny had a question. I've enabled you to talk in case you want to ask something. Shanil can also speak, yes.
Yeah, hi. So my question is around the stickiness quotient. So for example, when we initiate any SaaS product, we give a lot of freemium kind of system wherein we give the product for free to use. So is there any set trend or parameter you have come across wherein there is a standard stickiness quotient for a free product, which can give us some kind of inputs that now we can make some part of the product, or for some user or some higher user, paid, make it paid for some users. So is there anything for example, if the stickiness quotient reaches to 50%, and now this is the time we can make it paid, or if it reaches to 25%, I hope you understand what I'm trying to.
Absolutely. Thanks for this question, Shesh. Yeah, so I can give you two comments here. I'll give you an example of one of a leading social media site. When it releases a new feature, right? It looks at, is my feature adoption reaching 100 customers? That's one KPI. The other is my customer able to come back and use this again and again? That's another KPI. The second KPI is a stickiness quotient, and the first KPI is a volume number. So you need to understand that a stickiness quotient cannot just be a number which is reached once. A KPI that keeps bringing person again and again back, ability for a customer to come back, revisit it, and again hit it. That's what you need to set as a stickiness quotient, right? A classic example is Facebook when it launched the like capability of it, right? The likes, thumbs up that you do, right? The stickiness quotient KPI that Facebook kept was, within 3 months, then that's a stickiness quotient KPI for me. Now, this 3 months, which was about 5 years ago, has now reduced probably to a week, 7 days. So within 7 days, if I'm able to get the usage of that capability for a customer in a free product, then I know that that's something that is touching him, ability to reuse, make him use again and again. And that is a potential space which I want to go into a slightly premium offering. And slightly premium offering can come with two functions, where I also tell him that, hey, you know what? Let me start using a bulk capability of what you want to do for 3 months. And then I time in for the next 3 months. So that's what I call as the deliberation part, where I let that user go into a 3 months premium mode, start making him use it, and tie him so much into the ecosystem that eventually he'll end up paying for it because he sees the value of it. Yeah, so that's the way the enticing works from a stickiness quotient perspective.
All right, great, thank you. One more thing around that. Is there any industry standard of the conversion about like from free to paid user conversion? Like
this is a good generally. Yeah. So generally, freemium products. So we see that the conversion rate is around 15% for freemium products.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Again, it varies from country to country, geographies, ability. It also depends on is that a B2C product, a B2B product. All these things varies. But general rule of thumb, what we keep is 25% at an enterprise level. But at a B2C level, what we do see is in the Indian context, it's around 15%.
Nitin, you can go on with your question.
Well, when we talk about the SaaS-based business model, after a certain point of time and a certain traction of the customer, there is a time period when the business comes to a saturation point, especially in the SaaS-based model. At that point of time, what would you suggest to generate more and more revenue and to attract more and more customers when we reach a saturation point of a business, especially in the SaaS space?
Absolutely, Nitin. Very valid thought. That's why I keep telling the lifetime of a SaaS product is not more than 4-5 years, right? And that's where the saturation really hits you. The runway gets shorter with any SaaS capability that a customer uses. 5 years might become 3 years later on, but what you really start doing is what we do is we start looking at what is the next big thing that this colleague or this customer would be interested in. So we do look at launching a new capability, a better way of doing it, or in a different space to solve that problem rather than trying to build on that 4-5 year product. Yeah, I mean, a classic example, right? If I start using Facebook wall, the wall became a news feed. The news feed became an interaction pattern, and the interaction pattern became a video feed. So you need to reinvent yourself. You need to keep on inventing yourself for every 3-4 years time to ensure that you're able to provide value to that customer, keeping the core context for what it is invented the same. How do you solve it? I think you need to start putting that in.
So there are some questions on the chat also, Srivatsan. If you can just have a look and answer, otherwise I can just read it out loud.
SAP Hack to Build, how can I reach out to you for making SAP SaaS? As I said, thanks Krishna. Of course, we do support accelerators via SAP Startup Studio. You will be able to reach out to us in the Startup Studio, and of course, if you need support, get that will help you out. Can you, anonymous attendee, can you take 2 minutes to quickly walk through this slide from B2B product versus a B2C product, maybe with an example? Which slide do you want me to look at it? I don't have the name here, but the anonymous, probably we'll just park it, or if you know the colleague's name, we can look at it. I don't know which slide he's asking for from a B2B and a B2C product. Is this the dry model, Or okay, moving on, Praveen. We are a small team with limited budgets and we want to create awareness. Your thoughts on what startup could leverage in freemium the right way because burn rate could be high. Again, thanks, Praveen. Praveen, it's not about budget, right? It's about, yes, it's a constraint. I agree that it's a constraint. Awareness needs to be created by multiple ways, right? I mean, one, you need to ensure that you're able to hit the right chord with the people with whom you're talking about. And the classic example that I can give you is one of the companies that I started in the imaging front. They started looking at how can I give you something in a free space for image correction or reducing the image of Nika and Big Basket as a free product capability for Big Basket for 6 months. Once customers started liking that, then automatically you start building the connect to the next level. Of course, you need to ensure that you're able to address that space as a problem and then build on it. Is freemium the right way? Of course, it is the right way. There is a lot of burn that will happen in the first initial 1 or 2 years, and that's a given thing, right? I mean, there is no way we could get started with it. With the Indian context, I would say freemium is a great starting point of enticing a user into it. But many times what we do have seen is the failures are more if the next level from free to premium has a very high entry level, right? If you're able to break that entry level into smaller chunks and ability for you to guide the customer through a premium offering, it's easily done. What I mean by that is what we have seen in most of our journey is if a guy who's in a free space, if he needs to jump into a premium and that premium space has a high entry level barrier of, say, for example, $10 per month or $50 per month or 500 rupees per month, then many customers feel that, is this really a value for me to go there? If am I able to bundle services capabilities, open up capabilities, function, right? I mean, a classic example here is if I play a video game, right? I mean, I'm able to get to the first 5 levels of my video game. Then I know that can I open a small portion of that video game for a mini packet, right? A micro sachet or a micro top up or something like that. Then I'm able to open up only that particular space of that video for a person to try out. Then I'm enticing the guy into it, right? So it is all about stickiness. So a customer will upgrade to premium if there is a stickiness, very high stickiness quotient out of it. But if the entry level barrier to a premium is very high, then we have seen that customers don't even go over there. They are just so put off that they stay either in the free space or they switch over to another thing because the churn is very, very high. And of course, what it also means is the modularizing your solution in such a way that you're able to open up spaces in a very small way with a small way of enticing the guy into a larger picture, right? I mean, that's the way we have done that for most of the app-based capabilities of opening small things and then enticing them into a larger space. Does it answer your question, Praveen? Thanks. Super. Good. Ganesh, into B2B product, what are the ways to onboard a new customer quickly with all the right configuration as per the customer need? Ganesh, I'll tell you, in the SaaS world, we never spoke about 3 problems that exist. The first problem is customer onboarding in the B2B space. This is the biggest pain point for any SaaS product. And if you're able to ace the onboarding, have a seamless user experience, then it's the best that can happen. And many times, the second biggest problem that comes in onboarding is your ability to take over configuration either from an existing function where the B2B customer exists, ability to migrate it, or give the equivalent of that configurations in the new world. That's a big, what I would call as a holy grail for any B2B SaaS product, right? How do I do that? There are multiple ways in which you could solve these problems. The first point is when I go to an awareness stage of these B2B products, what I do see is customers are given a virtualized environment where they try out this product. And once they come out of these when you try to give a virtualized environment for these customers to try, and then they try to get to the reality, the expectation of these customers is that I have seen this in the VM environment or the virtualized environment or a starter function that exists. Can I do anything and everything that is already possible, which is a seamless switch on and switch off capability, right? Many times it is not a reality. Many times you need to have what is called as a hand-holding pattern with customers where you need to take them through the journey of onboarding these configurations, mapping these configurations from the old world to the new world. Many times telling the customer that it's not a one-to-one function, but something which is completely different, right? I mean, for example, you're moving into a new house, right? You don't want to again dump anything and everything that you bring in from your old house in, right? So as you move in, then what will happen is your new house will also be the same dump yard as your old house, right? So you don't want to do that. So you also need to explain with enablement and empowerment of that customer to say that, hey, do you really want to question that customers need to bring anything and everything that they have in their old world to the new world. And this conflict management approach that we use is to ensure that we question the customers' need for every configuration that exists, and then says that, do you really want to you really want to try something new in the new world, right? So that's the way we take the customers, question the customer, ask them to the journey, and then take them through. Many times customer onboarding is a very painful experience, and we lose customer satisfaction there. And many times, if any SaaS product is able to address this biggest gap of having a seamless onboarding, then you know that this customer is going to be there for trying out all the capabilities. So that's something that needs to be aced for any SaaS adoption. Ganesh, any follow-up questions that you want to quickly ask over there, or does that help you get a sense of it? Or good. Going on to the next question, in the B2B space, what level of customizing for a customer is acceptable? How much of my product do I change with incoming new requirements? Customizing, first and foremost, if there is zero customizing, nothing like that. And that's what I would always strive for. In the B2B space, if you can keep it to 1% of what you see in your on-premise space, that's the best that can happen. And if you're able to ace that kind of a requirement, then you do have an excellent SaaS product on your hand. If you're providing too many options, too many spanners to work with, you're only complicating your function and also the life of the customer. I'll give you a simple example here from a customizing perspective. When you move in your iPhone, right, a new feature that comes in, do you really have to customize it apart from your images and other things? Or do you really say that that's a logged in capability? Another way to look at it is, right, in Apple Music, have you ever seen a music equalizer? Ability to say that I need my bass corrected, or my high notes corrected, or my mid-tone corrected. Again, can be seen as a configuration or a customizing for a customer. But if you can do away with that, ability to have customer tied in with zero or minimal configure customizing is the best that can happen for any SaaS product. I know that's not the answer that any large enterprise customer will look for. Then in that case, you really need to question, is that a SaaS offering that you want to do, or a private tenant offering that you want to do for that customer? But in a public world, I would say 0 to none. Good. Further thoughts, feedback, questions? Good. A question coming in, what are some of the big rocks in B2B customer relationship management for a SaaS product? I would say onboarding is a big function in CX world. I have a guy who asked me a question in the CX world. Again, I go back to my example of Zoho, where a problem is raised by a customer. If when a ticket or a problem is raised by that customer, leader, the VP in that area told me that we don't question what is the problem the customer raised. Of course, that will be solved. But we go deeper to understand, why did this customer raise this issue? If we are able to solve why the customer raised that issue, rather than trying to solve what the problem was, then you have a larger way of solving it. So for me, if you have a mindset to say that if I have certain issues, and if that issue, if you can address the why part of that issue, why did the customer even raise a ticket to solve the problem or to raise a problem, then you have the large blocks already solved for you. And many times customers remain with you from a stickiness perspective if they have an experience where you don't even need to reach out to them at every point in time to explain what that usage is. So one, user experience is something that you need to solve in the B2B relationship customer CX world. Two, onboarding of customers. And three, ability to solve problems or have an interaction faster. So it's all about these three things that you really need to solve from a CX perspective in a B2B space. Does it answer your question? Good. Another question comes in. What are the great trends that you're seeing in the SaaS product? I can help you answer this question from a technology perspective, and also trying to say that what's happening in the world. In the SaaS world, nobody's going to write a code. Yeah, it's all about low code, no code. So a capability which you can leverage for faster time to market is always going to be your advantage. So leverage technology to the hilt of AI ML capabilities in your SaaS world You can even spin off SaaS functions just like that using standard function modules that exist in AWS world or in Microsoft Azure world or in Google Cloud Platform way, right? So the problem is not with the developer you're trying to solve. The problem is how am I able to solve the function, right? So tech stacks are there for you. Workbooks are there for you. Ability for these tech stacks to go low code, no code, or zero code. Zero customizing is always going to be there as a trend for the next foreseeable 4 to 5 years. With these enablers, the question that comes in is, can I have a faster time to market? Can I release a function in probably a 15-day period, right? Classic example is when Amazon or any other studio releases a feature capability, they are able to release new features within 7 days. And that's your time to market. A SaaS product being nimble, a startup studio mindset, if I'm able to release a capability with these kind of enablers faster to the market, I think that's going to be the biggest trend going forward. How soon can you do it? You already see that in the CX world, right? So Big Basket says that I'm going to deliver it tomorrow morning. There's a guy, Zepto, which comes in and says that I'm going to deliver it in 30 minutes. And there's another function that comes and says that I'm going to deliver it in 10 minutes, right? It's all about that retention period. And if that's going to be the way customer experience is going to lead with retail space, I do see a trend where the time to market for the SaaS product is going to drastically reduce, and they'll be challenged to release capabilities faster, a capability to release functions faster. 45 days, 30 days is already being questioned to say that do you really need 30 days to dish out a product function as a SaaS product? And that's going to be the trend moving forward. And all these technology enablers, from platform to platform stories to functions, is only going to help you make your ability to reach your customer faster. And if you can keep on reinventing yourself, then you're there in that game. Does that help? Good. Another question that comes in: what do you think about fintech? Fintech is a growing trend. Of course, there are some. What are some stories behind that? Fintech is a phenomenal space. It's not a new area. It's getting reinvented as we speak. It's getting re-challenged. It's getting reborn in every decade. What was fintech in the last decade is completely different from what is fintech now. Yeah. So I would say that it has always been a space that will remain, and that will always be a space that will be new at any point in time. Major trends that I do see in fintech is your payment space that is going to be completely redefined, and ability for you to have what I call as zero touch ability to do payments and reconciliation in the B2B world. This has already been aced or completely done in the B2C world. If this is something that we could do, if we can do that in the B2B world, that's going to be the biggest differentiator and game changer for the next 10 years, right? Ability to reinvent whatever we have done on the B2C world on fintech in the B2B space, right? SAP is investing a lot over there. We've seen that every company is investing a lot over there in that fintech space in the B2B world. What about food tech and delivery? I think food tech and delivery has always been a pioneer in delivery management from SaaS product capabilities adoption, and it will continue to grow. I mean, what we have seen is, have we reached the state? Of course, we have reached what is called as hyper local delivery, right? In the technology space, we have already gone to the state of hyper local delivery. The next big trend that's going to be is hyper local customizing, meaning you do not go and try to target groups of customer, which is not hyper localization. You try to target one customer as an individual unit or block, right? So that is hyper localization, ability to help service the needs of one customer. That's hyper local capabilities, and that's the next big trend that's going to happen in any delivery management, be it food or parcel or anything, right? I mean, that's where it's getting redefined. Good, Gautam. SAP has been one of those enterprises that collaborate and co-innovate with the startups. Can you share 2 cents on things to do or things not to do for some of the startups here, thinking of reaching out to Startup Studio at some point in time? Of course, Gautam, I mean, please reach out. I'm happy to have a long conversation with you. Things that I told you, right? Start with a purpose, trying to understand what is the purpose that you're trying to solve, how we are trying to. That's always going to be the approach, right? Start with why we are doing that, purpose, belief, starting with how we're going to solve that, and then finally into what comes as a byproduct of that thought process, which are the SaaS products, right? So Gautam, that's going to be the methodology that SAP has been working with.
Go ahead. I think there was some disturbance.
Yeah, so that's been the methodology that we've been advocating for most of our customers and interaction partners. So we will continue to do that, and of course also support you with new technologies, trends that's coming in. Good follow-up question, Praveen. What should be the difference between approach and creating awareness in B2Bs? I didn't get this question. What should be the difference between approach and creating awareness in B2B versus B2C SaaS products? Praveen, can you help me understand this question, please? I think Praveen raised his hand.
Hi, Srivatsan. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So my question was, like, we have multiple line product suites that we have built, right? We have built about 8, and we are launching about 4 of them at this point. And some of them are targeted towards enterprise, and some of them are targeted toward retail customers as well. So we believe that that's a value add for both the retail and for enterprise, right? So just the approach and packaging, we want to make it different, but we are trying to create more awareness in the market. I just wanted to get some thoughts from you as to should there be a different way that we need to approach the retail space and the organization space, because the retail also is a little mixed. We are focusing on the business and the individuals as well. So it's a bit mixed. So it's kind of gets a bit confusing, just to be very honest with you. So so the more clearer we are, we'll spend lesser money and we'll be more efficient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Praveen, generally the strategies that we use is we try to differentiate and distinguish here. Generally, the same product working in B2B and B2C has always been a tough challenge to sell and also try to position it the right way, right? So what we do is we do try to package it differently because the audience is different. The purpose of how they use it is also different. In business, we need to tie it in with the business strategy. For example, a company that runs on, say, for example, right? SAP, right? SAP is all about the purpose of running best run business. And I would rather look at sustainability as an angle to say that how do we partner in that space, just as an example, right? Whereas, can I talk the same trend of sustainability to a retail customer, retail B2C? No, right? So my talk point to a B2C is completely different. The value proposition I put is completely different. So if you ask me, if you helping package the same thing to 2 different audience, might not help.
I'm sorry, you're saying packaging the same thing for 2 different products? No, I'm sorry, can you just clarify that part?
Packaging the same product to 2 different audience and positioning might not help. You might want to create 2 different approaches and 2 different branding for that, and also probably 2 different ways of helping what personas I'm going to solve for that. So that's a slightly different way. Of course, the code line could be one, very simply put, but you might want to package it 2 differently, 2 different products.
You mean positioning it as a product differently? Is that what you're saying? Because it gets confusing because the user does not know whether it is for the enterprise or for the retail, right? If I'm going on, let's say on LinkedIn, and it may be confusing. I'm just trying to be.
Not really. A classic example is a LinkedIn enterprise user and a normal user, right? So LinkedIn has what I call as with a gold customer, whatever I do, right? I can buy a LinkedIn pass for enterprises, and look and feel I get in that is completely different. The code line is the same on LinkedIn, but the capabilities that it unlocks are completely different on the enterprise scale compared to retail LinkedIn, which is normally about ensuring that I get more and more data points into that space categories. So yes, it is packaged differently even in the LinkedIn space.
So you're asking me to just be careful about how you're packaging it and how you're positioning it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to be sure that I got it correctly. Thank you. And just, sorry, we are still on Ken. So you did mention about hyperlocal for the delivery systems, right? And you mentioned a word that's the next stage. I kind of quite didn't get that word.
Hyperlocalization,
right? Now, in similarly in SaaS, is there a new trend that's coming up? If you can share some light on that.
In SaaS world, it's all about, again, as I keep saying, right? What we do is the best next journey that we are doing in the SaaS world is what I call as API as a product. Many times we look at API functions that exist in the SaaS product as an extensibility function, right? Yeah. But the next big trend that's coming up is purpose-driven APIs, and how do I bundle these APIs as a product itself, a monetizing state. And that's a big trend that's going on. You do see that a purpose-driven built APIs, which were initially thought as extensibility mechanisms to my functions, are bundled together for a better monetization or a better way of connectivity.
Actually, we are also kind of bundling certain services together for better value add, which already exists, but we're just trying to bundle it in a play way and packaging. And I think I didn't know this was a trend. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. This is in the B2B space, this is a big thing that's coming up where I can bundle API as a product.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Thank you.
Hey, I think we can just take one last question, which is on the chat. Can you suggest how one can build no-code SaaS for EdTech? I'm a non-tech founder.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I keep saying, right? I mean, there are a lot of platforms, ability with low-code, no-code functions that helps you build products from the scratch. It gives you ability to create workflows, automations, and everything on a platform, be it Google Cloud Platform or AWS. So you don't need to worry about the tech stack. You just need to worry about providing a solution in your space, right? I'm not a big domain expert on the edtech, but if you feel that there is a niche space that you can solve, there are enough technology enablers in the low-code, no-code space that can help you get running in 15 days time, flat 15 days, with forms and fields, ability to provision databases behind, ability to connect workflows and automations and so on in just a matter of time. Good, Manya, over to you.
Yeah, well, I think we've answered pretty much, everything, not pretty much, but everything. So thank you so much for being so patient and, patiently answering all the questions. We're glad that you could take the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, team. Have a nice day. Take care.